If you want some, come get some.
This is such good shit.
I am the visionary. I am a revolutionary. I am Seth. Look at Brian. I can't give the belt to Dusty, but I can give it to my mama. I can give it to my mommy. Acknowledge me.
Lately, he just hasn't been very oozy.
Because Ryan is really gay. He's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
He's describing himself. But he's also jealous because the last real champion.
Show the people that are watching. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Wearing his belt. Look at it. I'm telling you. Kayfabe is real with this guy. Kayfabe is real with this guy.
The last real champion.
Trumpian. Over here.
Nah.
Nah.
So today we are talking about our biggest what ifs
In wrestling history.
Yeah.
The biggest what ifs in wrestling history.
We got a lot of those.
Exactly. So we're coming up with ideas. We were going to talk about Money in the Bank, but
we don't know all the participants yet.
Exactly. So
that'll be next episode.
Yes, exactly.
And your boy will be there live.
He will. I might. We'll see.
He will be.
If you can find me a ticket under $100, then I will be there.
Sounds like you just want me to buy your ticket.
I mean,
like I did when we went to freaking WrestleMania 39.
Yeah, and just how I bought half of your ticket for WrestleMania this year.
Yeah, but it's still not even close to what you owe me. You still owe me like a ton of money.
Get out of here.
From that.
A ton of money?
Yes, sir.
What are you talking about? WrestleMania was a ton of money this year.
Yeah, but I still spent more on you when we went in LA.
You love me. That's why. Because he loves me.
Yeah, and you don't.
I do love you. I love him a lot.
But yeah, our biggest wrestling what ifs.
Our biggest wrestling what ifs in WWE history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where to start?
Yeah, it could, like, how I really just structured this in my head was just, like, for example, what if, the Undertaker streak never ended? Or what if Stone Cold Steve Austin never retired? Or The Rock never left the WWE 2004? We'll get to those. Yeah. What do you want to talk about first? What's your biggest what if in WWE history?
Ooh, biggest what if. I think a big one is what if CM Punk never left in 2014?
That's a good one. What if CM Punk never left in 2014? How would you have? Well, we know that he was slated to wrestle Triple H
at WrestleMania 30.
And that would have honestly. So if you remember, I think the original card was Punk and Triple H. It was Daniel Bryan was going to face Sheamus in some like mid-card match, and then for the world title it was going to be Randy Orton and Batista. So they probably would have followed that route if Punk never left.
Yeah, and who knows if it would have had the added twist of when it gets added to the WWE World Title match. So who knows? But I think it's interesting to think about because CM Punk, he was gone for 10 years, but even though he was gone for 10 years, the fans were still chanting his name.
Mm-hmm.
He was still in the hearts and minds of the WWE universe, but WWE did everything in their power to try to, blacklist him.
Well,
try to erase him from history.
He wasn't so much Benoit, but he was, some Nanguada.
Who?
Oh my gosh! Stop.
Who?
Wow. See, kayfabe is still alive with this guy.
I don't know who.
Wow.
Who?
Anyways, so if Punk never left WWE in 2014, then he would have the Triple H match would have happened. I think honestly, the world title probably would have been on Batista at that point. Who knows if they would have given the world title to Daniel Bryan? Who knows if his run would have happened like that?
Yeah, who knows if the Yes Movement even would have been gotten as far as it did, because the Yes Movement was super popular, and if CM Punk was still around, who knows if the Yes Movement would have even been a thing.
Exactly. So, I honestly think that, like, Punk would have left eventually because he was just so beat up and tired at that point. I think he would have let his contract run out that summer. He probably would have been in a feud maybe with Brock Lesnar because they probably would have, put the title on Lesnar anyways. So putting a feud between Lesnar and Punk, and then Punk leaving while his contract runs out. Yeah, I could see that happening, and then probably taking quite a few months off, really, before re-signing.
Yeah, so I think that's a huge, huge what if.
Exactly.
But it wouldn't have gotten us the big return to Survivor Series 2023.
I mean, who knows how fate would have happened? You know what I mean? It's dominoes. CM Punk would have never joined the UFC. That who knows if that would have happened? And then maybe he does take a long extended break. Who knows? Maybe he does go to AEW. Maybe not. You know.
That's another what if I want to talk about.
Okay, you want to talk about it right now?
Yeah, we
All
could.
right.
What if what if Cody Rhodes never left originally? Like
Oh,
kind of
2015.
it's kind of like a two-parter. Like what if Cody Rhodes never left WWE in 2015?
Mm-hmm.
And like what if Cody Rhodes like eventually became Cody Rhodes again and wasn't Stardust anymore?
Right.
That paves the way. It's like would AEW have been a thing?
Right.
Would
Yeah.
Cody have been as big of a name as he is now?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So Cody Rhodes is Stardust in 2015. That leads to him leaving WWE. Let's say he doesn't leave and he's continuing to be Stardust. I think honestly he probably is in the mid card for a lot, for a bit longer. And I think there has to be some kind of change there. I think he goes to Vince McMahon and he just refuses to do the Stardust character at some point. He probably does it for like maybe the year's end or maybe like another whole year after that. But at some point he has to transform back into Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing of why he wanted to leave because he was telling Vince and everybody else that he wanted to go back to being Cody.
Right.
He was done being Stardust, but they kept saying no. Stardust is your role, it's your character, and so that's part of the reason why Cody left when he did.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, him leaving, he did I think he did Ring of Honor, he did the Indies, he did TNA, you know. We probably will see him going back to Cody Rhodes in WWE if he doesn't leave. But I can't see him being the world champion like he is now, like the man. Like I cannot picture that happening.
Well, he's not the world champion right now because the world champion
Oh God.
is the greatest of all time.
We're just
He's
gonna
the
fast
last
forward this.
real
We're just gonna fast forward this
champion.
moment.
Yeah, he is the
But
last real champion.
Okay, take kayfabe out of it.
Stardust ain't ever touching that title
Kayfabe.
again.
This guy. But Cody is the man right now. Cody. Shut up.
Was
Okay,
the man.
realistically, he is the man right now.
Nah.
Can you stop? Can you just get out of kayfabe for a second?
What's kayfabe?
Oh my God. Whatever.
No. I don't think Cody would be as big of a name as he is now if he had stayed.
Yeah. I can't see him being a main eventer like he is now. Like Cody is the man in WWE. There's no doubt about it.
For now.
Shut up. Gosh.
This guy.
Cody.
Get a load of this guy.
Okay, so Cody comes back and obviously he goes to AEW or starts AEW in 2019 and then comes back in 2022 and he basically is neck and neck with Roman Reigns and has overtaken Roman Reigns as the man in WWE. But yeah, if he stays in WWE in 2015, I see him transforming back to Cody Rhodes. He probably has a little bit of more of a push as like a bad guy, but honestly, I don't see it happening as him as like the man like he is now.
But yeah, and it leaves the way is like, would AEW exist? Like, what if AEW
Yeah.
just like never became more than just an idea?
Right. I mean, does it go without Cody Rhodes? I don't think so. Tony Khan probably still has an idea to start, and they probably do start something, but not as big as AEW was when it started. And certainly it's not what it is today. Yeah, Cody was the engine behind AEW, in the beginning. CM Punk was the engine behind it, the years he was there, and now it's being led by a much, different group, but It's yeah, I can't see AEW taking off the way they have, especially because Cody's relationship with the Young Bucks and their involvement in all that. So I don't know. Yeah. All right.
What's another big what if you got?
All right. What if Stone Cold Steve Austin never breaks his neck in 1997? Right. And so that I think Austin, has the run that he has as the world champion from basically 98 to 2002. He's the man, right? But if he never breaks his neck in 1997, then Austin's career lasts another, gosh, I would say 6 years,
I,
five,
I
6 years.
I wouldn't be surprised if he'd still be like a wrestler, like wrestle every now
Nah,
and then
not
today.
now. I mean, he's already in his late 50s,
No,
but
but I mean, if he never broke his neck, it maybe he would wrestle like every now and then,
I mean, not
be
now.
like Undertaker, like.
Maybe a decade ago, but um, yeah. So honestly, so WrestleMania 19 happens, where Austin has his final match with The Rock. And, like if Austin never, breaks his neck in 97, then his career continues. We see him in the ring with guys like John Cena. We see him in the ring with guys like Randy Orton,
CM
Batista,
Punk.
CM Punk. He probably has his last match probably in 2009, 2010, 12, around that era, I could see him extending.
2012, that was like a time period where like people wanted Punk versus Stone Cold.
Yeah, I mean that we could have had that match, definitely.
That's another what if you could say, like, what if we got like Stone Cold versus CM Punk during that time when CM Punk was like at his peak in terms of his popularity.
Sure. I could see that being a retirement match for Steve.
Oh yeah, totally. Like that, and that's a match I think Steve would want. I think that's a match Steve would be willing to come out of
Sure.
retirement for.
Yeah. I mean there was speculation back when they released the 2000 or WWE 2 not 2K13. I think it was just WWE 13 at that point. Where they did the sit down with Jim Ross. They did like the hype video for that video game, and they were like in such promo mode against each other, and there was a lot of speculation for Austin coming out of retirement to face Punk, but it never happened. But I think if Austin doesn't break his neck, in '97 from Owen Hart giving him the pile driver, obviously he has his full run as world champion from '98 to 2002 continues probably a couple more title reigns, but you see him in main events, probably WrestleMania 20 instead of Chris Benoit, it's probably Austin Michaels and sorry, Triple H, Austin Michaels, you know, in that world title mix. Probably Stone Cold wins the world title instead of Chris Benoit,
And
you
and
know?
and who knows? Maybe Stone Cold would have won a fourth Royal Rumble.
Yeah. You could have won a fourth one. I think you definitely get a match with him and Randy Orton, John Cena at some point, probably instead of Shawn Michaels in at WrestleMania 23, it's probably Austin John Cena, with Austin kind of winding down his career a
And
little
the
bit.
goat whooping his ass.
Shut your mouth.
The goat
I
whooping
can see
his
John
ass.
Cena winning that match, but
Yeah, and he whoop his ass. He would stomp a mud hole in Stone Cold. Hit him with a little bit of an FU. You know it's true. You know it's true.
kayfabe, man. Kayfabe is a lot. I'm gonna make you a T-shirt that says "Kayfabe is live and real with you."
No, you know, think of this what if. You know what another what if is a potential
Hmm.
WrestleMania match?
Yeah.
Austin versus Kurt Angle.
Well, we had that in during the invasion storylines.
I
That
know,
was
but like on a bigger stage.
yeah, but also okay. Here's a good one. What if Kurt Angle didn't leave in 2006?
What if Kurt Angle was never Perk Angle?
Well, he's definitely probably still Perk Angle at that point. His injuries and this guy, I mean, he was a machine. But originally when Kurt Angle left in 2006, he wanted time off, and he really wanted to get healthy, and he had a major drug issue
So
at that
so
point.
so the plan was for him to come back eventually.
Yes, the plan was he needed to take extended time off, but TNA made him a great offer to work less dates, to be just to be not on the road as much, and he ended up signing with TNA, to the shock of many people. And so, what if Kurt Angle doesn't join TNA? does TNA take off the way they do at that point? Because from 2005, 2006, 2007, TNA was as close of a number two to WWE as
Yeah,
we've ever seen.
they were hot. Yeah, I think arguably that's probably the hottest TNA's ever been.
Yeah, arguably. Yeah, exactly. I think that is peak TNA right there. I mean, right now, I'd say they're on such a global stage with WWE, the partnership, but
And shout out to Trick Willie, the
you
new
TNA.
TNA World Champ. Who would have thought that in this day and age that we would see the TNA World Heavyweight Championship defended in a WWE ring and a WWE guy winning the title?
Yeah, it's unbelievable to think. Um, but yeah, you know, um, who knows if TNA is still around at this point if
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
and it's one of those things too that gives me like another like what if Vince was willing to like work more with companies, and like what if TNA and WWE had like a deal and a merger, or at least an agreement of sorts, to
Mm,
collaborate more.
yeah, I mean, that would have never happened during, especially like 2007, 2008. That would have never happened during the tenure of Vince McMahon. Um, it's interesting to think, though. Interesting, definitely interesting to
Yeah,
think. But yeah, going back to Kurt Angle, he probably would have stayed in WWE a lot, a lot longer. You would have seen him in probably a lot more WrestleMania main events at that point, probably doing some mid card stuff as well. Kind of just doing what he was doing, but I've obviously, he left for a reason. And I think Vince McMahon would have looked at him and been like, Kurt, you have to get your life together. So he probably would have been forced to take another extended time off. And this guy is already beaten up. He already had so many broken necks by the time he left WWE in the first point that, you know, that it eventually would have all caught up with him. And Vince McMahon would have never let him to, continue on the way he was, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. Here's another one. What if our final boss,
God.
our final boss, your final boss. What if The Rock never left WWE in 2004? Interesting thing to think about. The reason why The Rock left WWE in 2004 is his Hollywood career was on
Because
the ascent.
because he wanted to go be a mid-tier actor doing mid-tier movies.
Well, not sure if you know about this, but it was actually Vince McMahon that let his contract expire without getting into negotiations. I think Vince McMahon purposely wanted to see The Rock fail and then for The Rock to come back. No, The Rock was hurt by that. He was hurt, Obviously, he wanted to continue his run in WWE, part time as it be. But, having The Rock leave in 2004, definitely created a big void in WWE. No more Austin, no more Rock, like two of the biggest stars of the Attitude Era and two of the biggest stars of all time, And so The Rock leaving in 2004 was a massive, massive void. And, it was filled by guys like John Cena and Batista and Randy Orton, but not, you know,
And who knows what would have happened to those guys if The Rock and or even Austin were still around at that point.
So I was thinking about this earlier. And so after WrestleMania 20, when The Rock and Mick Foley had their tag team match, The Rock made a couple more appearances after that. And so one appearance was on a Monday Night Raw leading up to SummerSlam. And it was Randy Orton was in the ring. I think he still had the Intercontinental title at that point, but he was getting ready to lose it to Edge. Um, so then Randy Orton can go work for the world title against Chris Benoit. But The Rock came back one night, and it seemed like off that night that we were getting Randy Orton versus The Rock at SummerSlam. It was, The Rock was back, and he was, him and Randy Orton were jacking at each other, and it led to like kind of like a little mini brawl. The Rock was kicked out of the building by Eric Bischoff, and that was pretty much the last time we saw The Rock on WWE television until 2008 when he did the Hall of Fame for his dad, and then 2011 when he came back, to challenge John Cena. But if The Rock's contract doesn't elapse, well, if let's say he does work a match with Randy Orton at SummerSlam 2004, he does that, and then probably has a WrestleMania match in 2005, WrestleMania 21. Who knows who that's against? Maybe Triple H, maybe not Batista at that point. Uh, Who knows? Definitely a lot more main events. What are you doing on your phone?
Don't worry about it.
Pay attention. This is your
What?
show.
I know. I'm letting you talk. You're doing the talking right now. I'm letting you talk.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Focus. Focus. Oh my God. This guy. Distracted. Distracted. Who are you texting?
Your mom.
Oh God. Oh God. All right. Anyways. All right. What's your next? What if?
Another what if I had. This is an interesting one. What if WWE like decided to like not do the Thunderdome during COVID? Like what if the WWE ultimately just like stopped?
Oh wow. Yeah. I think that's a very interesting take right there.
Because as we saw, literally all other sports
Stop.
stopped.
Yeah.
They eventually came back, but like they all stopped. But
Yeah.
WWE, they kept going. And
Yeah.
so it makes me wonder, like, what if the WWE like took a break like all the other sports did?
That's interesting because I was kind of in favor of WWE taking a break at that point. I didn't, for the wrestlers' health sake, there was too much of a risk going on at that point to even continue. And it was honestly, if TKO had, existed in 2020, when the pandemic happened, they for sure, 100%, 100%, no doubt in my mind, they would have closed its doors for at least a little bit. They would have shut it down because, um, there's no way they could take that risk under Vince McMahon at that point. He was, gosh, there was Vince McMahon was so far up his own ass when it came to the creative
And he was under the mindset of like,
maniacal.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
under the mindset of the show must go on like regardless. And so
exactly,
like even with COVID in Vince's mind, he's like, no, the show has to go on.
exactly.
And I mean, like there were some highlights of like the COVID era, but most of it's like forgettable, and most of it's just like
Yeah, I mean,
this
I
is
can't really
like,
think of anything that notable that happened during the COVID era of Monday Night Raw. I mean,
and some of the biggest moments we had, it's like imagine we had a crowd for it, like when Christian returned at the 2021 Royal Rumble.
yeah, or just Drew McIntyre winning the title. You
Yeah,
know,
like
very much they should have paused at least for a couple months. I was I remember at the time thinking, why not just pause for a couple months and then reconvene and then bring WrestleMania during the summer or June, July. I know that conflicts with SummerSlam, but who cares at that point?
or maybe it could even be one of those things where maybe they only do like maybe like 3 or 4 shows the
Yeah.
entire year.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
and you could do WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and maybe like a Money in the Bank or Survivor Series.
they had TV to fill at that point and they just didn't want to lose the money. I get it, but yeah. They definitely should have went for at least a month or two, three
But
months.
but you do got to give them credit and effort for trying and like still doing their best to like entertain. So you do have to give them credit for that. Give them
That's
props
true,
for
and people
that.
still got paid, but it was at their own risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's just like another thing that I had been thinking about. Like, what if WWE had just like taken a break?
Exactly. Yeah. What's your next what if?
Hmm.
I'm gonna play the Jeopardy song for you. All right, I have one.
No, well, yeah. Go ahead.
What if Bret Hart never, well, the Montreal screw job never happened in '97? Let's say Bret Hart continued to work with WWE. At that time, Bret Hart signed a 20-year contract with the World Wrestling Federation, something unheard of. Basically, would have taken him through his retirement, and then Vince McMahon saw him working as an executive in the office. Um, yeah, let's break that down a little bit. You know, Montreal Screwjob never happens, and Brett never. Well, the whole reason why Brett was leaving is because, Vince McMahon in early 1997, offered Brett that contract. I believe it was like 96, whatever. But in 1997, early 97, Vince McMahon went up to Brett, and basically he told him that he couldn't fulfill the contract, because business was down at that point. Very WWE, WWF was very close to going through bankruptcy, at that point. Business was down, attendance was down, pay-per-views were down, everything was down. He couldn't fill that contract for Brett. And so I believe it was reported. I think the first Monday Night Raw at Madison Square Garden, that's where Vince had the conversation with him, and Vince McMahon basically told Brett, "It's okay, you can negotiate with WCW." So that allowed Brett to negotiate, and he signed a contract, leaving after the Survivor Series in '97. Um, but if that doesn't happen, Brett continues to work through that contract. He's the champion. I think we still get the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin at that point, but I think it's a rematch from WrestleMania 13 going to WrestleMania 14, or at least a triple threat between him, Shawn, and Stone Cold. Um, you know, uh, you get that match, and Austin becomes champion. I think Brett takes a little bit of time off, but then comes back, and then you see Brett working in the Attitude Era. He's working with guys like Mankind, The Rock, of course, Undertaker, Triple H. He's kind of like, I would definitely see him continuing a heel persona at that point, because babyface Brett probably wouldn't have worked in the Attitude Era. The whole whiny Canadian, USA sucks kind of mentality would have worked perfectly, I think, with that. And you would have had him in a program against The Rock. You would have had him, in more programs against Stone Cold, Triple H, maybe another couple more title wins. He continues probably until 2002, 2003, around there. You know,
But at
Def,
the
yeah.
but at the end of the day, Brett screwed Brett.
Oh God.
I think Brett knew about the screw job.
Well,
I think he's just holding a grudge because he wanted to make himself the victim.
I don't know.
But I think Brett knew about the screw job.
Let's see if this. Oh, there it goes. You see it? See it? That little
Yeah.
bug. That
But
little...
yeah. But yeah, I think Brett knew about the screw job. Or at least had some sort of idea that something was going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite to the extent of the way it did, like how the Montreal screw job happened.
Yeah.
But I do think Brett had some sort of idea that something was going to happen.
He had to known. The way it happened was, Brett didn't want to lose the title to Shawn because I think it was like a month earlier. Brett went to Shawn and he said, I don't mind putting you over. You know, you know, they basically Brett was basically saying like, I don't mind putting you over for the world title, and Shawn basically said, I won't do the same for you, and that's where Brett was like, F that. I don't want to lose the title to this guy, and he for sure didn't want to lose it in Montreal, Canada. Um, those are two things that he just didn't want to do. So there was a lot of decisions that they could have done. They could have taken the title off of Brett earlier. They could have put it on Undertaker. They could have changed the match. Somehow, some way, they could have done it differently. And he have had to know that Vince was going to do the best thing for the company because he didn't want to take the chance of Brett showing up to WCW with the title. Obviously Brett's a trustworthy guy, but you're not gonna take that chance. So who knows? Yeah. Any others?
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a whole lot of others
Yeah, there's a whole
out there.
bunch we could discuss, but of course
Mhm.
for time.
What if Eddie Guerrero
Oh
did?
yeah, that is one I had thought of. Yeah, what if Eddie Guerrero was, didn't pass away when when he did? Cause I was telling you the other day, I think honestly, I still think Eddie would be wrestling today.
Yeah.
Maybe not full time, not as fast as he was, but I honestly could still see Eddie Guerrero wrestling today.
Yeah.
Imagine having him involved with the Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio story.
I mean, okay, so yeah, Eddie Guerrero would have been like 50, close to 60 years old at this point. So I don't know if he'd be wrestling today. Um, his body was already beaten to shit. But he definitely continues to wrestle till at least 2000, maybe a decade later, throughout the whole Cena run, definitely, you know.
But yeah, imagine we got to see Eddie Guerrero versus John Cena or Eddie Guerrero versus CM Punk or
hmm
like
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think by the time Eddie passed away, he wasn't the same wrestler, but the guy could still put on a great match, you know. So having Eddie perform another 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years, man, that would have went a long way. Just unfortunate that his heart was already at a point where substance abuse and all the crazy shit that he did in his past caught up to him. Steroids and all that too. You can't, the guy, was yoked. So all that stress he put on his heart definitely took a toll, and that's why he passed away. But had that stuff had his heart not taken the abuse like that, Eddie Guerrero definitely would have still made an impact. And for sure, we would have gotten a Shawn Michaels Eddie Guerrero match at WrestleMania 22.
Yeah, because that was the plan, and
Yeah,
it's crazy that like in all the years they were in WWE together, they never once had a match.
yeah,
That's
it's a
crazy
thing.
to think. You had two of the greatest to ever do it inside the ring. Never went one on one against each other. It's just
Exactly.
crazy to think. I don't even know if they had any interactions together.
I don't know. I can't think of any because Shawn came back in 2002. Eddie passed in 2005. They're both on Raw and SmackDown. Shawn being on Raw, Eddie being on SmackDown, and they never crossed over, really, at that point. Except for Shawn doing his angle with Kurt Angle.
Yeah,
But that was it.
and then it makes you wonder too, like how would that have changed? The career of even Rey Mysterio, like because
Hmm.
he won the 2006 Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
Would Rey have still won the Royal Rumble? Would Rey have still gone on to become World Heavyweight Champion?
exactly, exactly.
So that's what I mean. These what ifs even lead to like other like what ifs.
Yeah,
Like, oh, like what if like how would it have altered Rey Mysterio's career as a whole?
yeah, definitely. It's interesting to think about. We'll do one more, and I'll leave you at this because I think you're gonna like this. I think you're gonna like this. What if John Cena was fired in 2002?
God.
What if John Cena was fired? Because let's think about this. The WWE at that point, no Rock, no Austin, right? Two of the biggest guys from the Attitude Era are gone at that point. Rock wrestled a couple more matches, a few more matches, but he wasn't the main eventer that he was because he was going into Hollywood.
He wasn't a mainstay anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, Austin at that point, Austin left the company in 2002, and then he came back for one more match against The Rock, and then that was it. So going into late 2002, WWE was business was going down. Attendance figures, ratings, everything, and plus they had just switched from WWF to WWE. People didn't like that. So there was definitely a major switch in the company from the beginning of 2002 to the end of 2002. That's such a fascinating year to me, to be honest. That's one of my favorite years in WWE history because if you just look at it, the start of 2002, we're still there's still the World Wrestling Federation. The brand split is not a thing. You know, the brand split only becomes a thing in May of that year. Austin, Rock, the NWO are headlining pay-per-views or they're headlining shows. Triple H is back, all of it. You know, the roster's stacked still. But then you go to the end of 2002, WWE now. No more Rock, no more Austin. NWO's gone. Hogan's not even wrestling at that point. He came back in 2003, but like, you know what I mean? He had went away for a little bit. So a lot of the main guys, dude, are gone, And so John Cena taking off the way he did from 2002 to, from now, 25 years, right? Think about the impact John Cena's had in WWE history. I mean, it's tremendous.
He's the GOAT, the greatest to
Like,
ever
I know
do
I'm
it.
making fun of like kayfabe with you, but like, think about it. Like, John Cena, carried the WWE for close to 20 years on his back. Of course, there's guys like Randy Orton, Batista, and whatever.
Yeah,
Undertaker.
but he was like the guy. He was the face of the company for 12 years.
Hmm. And what if John Cena was fired in 2002 when, like people infamously say that if, he Stephanie McMahon noticed a rap on the back of the bus. What if that doesn't happen and he's let go? Like, where does WWE go at that
Would
point?
WWE even still be a thing
I think it
today?
would, but I mean, gosh, you can't like where do they go at that point? And so they're still relying on guys like Undertaker, Triple H, to carry the way, right? Triple H is on Raw, Undertaker, Brock, Brock's another good question too. Um, you know, they're really trying to hang on to the trajectory of Brock Lesnar at that point. And they're really just trying to get the most out of Undertaker. They're trying to get the most out of Triple H, and they're probably really honestly trying to. If John Cena doesn't take off in 2005, they probably don't let The Rock's contract run out in 2005. They probably are up Shit's Creek
The
with
Rock
ratings.
and The Rock would probably still be like the guy.
I think he still tries to do Hollywood, but I think, Vince McMahon would practically be on his knees for The Rock to come back. By 2005, it's not that they didn't need The Rock. The Rock was still The Rock, but they put all their eggs in their basket for John Cena. And without John Cena, gosh, especially like 2006, 2007, 2008, like who carries that company? I mean, Triple H was valuable piece, but like he's not really carrying the company the way John Cena carried the company because John Cena is the next young up and coming thing. And John Cena was the ultimate champion for Vince McMahon. John Cena was everything for Vince McMahon. And so they're really trying to get the most out of like the old timers at that point. They probably try to get Austin to do another, set of matches. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Uh, yeah, I think the WWE is they're still making money at that point, and things are going, but it's not the same at all.
The landscape would have been different for sure if John Cena was
Right.
let go in 2002.
Yeah, because they just don't have a guy at that point to carry everything on.
And it's one of those things too. It's like with how quickly he got over with the fans, as Dr. Thugonomics, like because the crowd, they really were not rooting for anybody else at that time.
Right.
And then when Cena he got so over and he got big, that's when kind of it started to do like, all right, I think Cena's the guy. I think this is who the fans want. This is going to be our next top guy. And if he's not in the company at that point, I don't see who could have been the top guy.
I don't see it either. Randy Orton, but Randy Orton's a heel. He's best as a heel.
And then Randy had some personal issues outside the ring too.
Exactly.
Where with a guy like Cena had he essentially had a clean slate. Like he didn't have any major issues outside. Like
yeah, and if you think about it, CM Punk doesn't take off until 2011. Really, there's no way they're putting their eggs in a basket for a 2006 CM Punk because they looked at him and they didn't want any business with him.
Yeah, and then even Jeff Hardy, even when he
Yeah.
reached his popularity with all his past issues,
Yeah.
I don't think they'd be able to depend on Jeff Hardy to be the top
Well,
guy.
and that's interesting to think about too because Jeff Hardy left WWE in 2004, I think, right? He left WWE in 2004, didn't come back until 2006. He was off for 2 years in TNA. 2006, Jeff comes back and he's a big baby face, but they didn't really put the world title on him as as a main event guy until 2008. They don't have at that point, can you trust Jeff Hardy to be the guy in 2006? I don't know. I mean, you have to wait and see. Yeah, CM Punk, like I said, and John Cena. John Cena is the guy that CM Punk. Them two. They really boosted their careers. You know what I mean? Cena was already a proven guy at that point, but Cena helped make CM Punk.
Even CM Punk today says, "Be like, CM Punk would not be CM Punk today if it wasn't for John Cena."
Exactly.
Even he acknowledges that, like, no, I would not be where I'm at if it wasn't for John Cena.
Yeah. Who knows? Does John Cena, if he's fired in 2002, does he continue to wrestle? Does he go to TNA at that point? Does he become a big star for them? Interesting to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
That's a world I don't want to imagine.
Oh my God.
Because
then you wouldn't have all those T-shirts on your back.
And then I probably, who knows if I would have even been a WWE fan at that point.
Who knows, dude? Yeah. You probably would have been an anime guy at this point. But all right. Sounds good. Cool. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, and then if you guys have any, cool what if scenarios, feel free to, leave it on the Instagram,
Comment, YouTube.
comment, YouTube, yeah.
LaceTheMUptakes@gmail.com. You can find us
Yeah.
there.
Send us your what ifs.
Exactly.
You know, if you have anything that you want us to talk about, send that our way.
Exactly. Yeah. Fun episode.
Yeah.
Next week, Money in the Bank.
Yes, sir.
Well, he'll be there. He'll be there. I'll be watching from home.
Can't see me.
You can't see me in the
'Cause
arena.
The last real champ is here.
No. All right. See you guys.